My name is Garth Baldwin. I'm 42 years of age. I am an archaeologist. I'm practicing archaeologist at a consulting firm right now. We are presently in Bellingham, Washington, in the northwest coast. I am what's generally called a principal investigator now. My master's degree is in spatial analysis. Primarily in the work world, I have done human burials, burial mitigation, Native American consultation, and reconnaissance, recovery, and mitigation of archaeological sites. And I do a lot of pre-construction cultural resource review. So that is, I go out and survey for archaeology before construction projects. And like I said, I come from a construction background. I was an engineer equipment operator in the Marine Corps. So I have a minor in English, a minor in geography. Making maps and things is kind of one of the things I did in school. Helped with spatial analysis later. When I got my master's degree in archaeology, technically in Paleolithic archaeology, which is old world, Neanderthals is what we studied. I do a lot of community outreach. Just as my job, I work with a lot of cities and towns, and part of my job constantly is education and explaining to people what's being done, why, what we're looking for, how, etc., etc. What do we do if we find it? What does it mean? I used to teach. I've taught classes at Western Washington University. So I'd gotten out of the Marine Corps at about 22, and then I worked for a while, went back into construction and fell off a roof or two, and decided I thought that construction was not my game, and I didn't want to go into commercial fishing, which is what a lot of my family does. So I went to college with the GI Bill, so it helped me go to school, and I was studying English, but I was a senior, so I was about 26, 27, somewhere in that neighborhood, junior, senior, and I was almost done with an English degree in poetry and literature. I was going to teach school or something, and I took an archaeology class, and the professor liked what I did as far as the reporting thereof, and he liked one of the reports I had, called me in, and I thought I was getting called into the office for plagiarism or something, but he said I was a really good writer, and I had good insights, and was I gonna look at archaeology as a career? And I literally asked him, "Can you make a living doing it?" And he says, "I've been doing it for 20 years, And he was it was funny, but sure enough, he ended up being my thesis advisor when I went to graduate school. But he convinced me to take a couple more classes. He says, "Take field school in the summer; it's fun." And I just had a knack for it. As an archaeologist, as an anthropologist, I work in human generalities. So it's hard for me to say that anyone has got any kind of uniqueness or perspective. Everybody has their own perspective and no one does, So I'm not saying, and I'm not trying to be humble, because that's not it. But what makes me good at what I do is who I am. So to toot my own horn and brag a little bit, I went to high school for 2.5 years and got a diploma. I graduated first out of 6 platoons, so that's nearly 600 men. I graduated first. I was promoted to E3 out of boot camp, and after the Marine Corps, I eventually went to college. I got my BA in 4 years, even though I really just screwed that up because I changed my major as almost a senior. But I finished in 4 years, and then I got my master's degree. A couple years later, I went back, got my master's degree, and I got my MA in 1 year. Innovation in my field is not something it's not really subject or anything. It's just taking a logical approach to everything, knowing where and when to look for something and why, rather than blindly going in and digging holes in a grid fashion, just because that's the way it's always been done. Well, it doesn't make any sense. If I go to an area and there's high spots surrounded by wet spots, I'm not going to dig holes through the wet spots. I'm going to skip those, and I'm going to dig holes around the areas where someone could have put up a camp, or could have butchered a deer, or could have flaked a tool, and look for the traces of people who were there before. The person gets excited about things they're very good at, and I am good at what I do. I could be not good at some things, and I can tell you all about those, but I am very good at I'm at my job. And I think that's part of it, and the part of dispelling ignorance is something that I really enjoy doing, in a constructive way, explaining to some people that don't have a proper view of, I don't want to say bigoted, because everybody's prejudiced. Everyone has a prejudice about someone else, the other, as a human culture. We all do. But being able to show somebody something and explain it to them, why is this important? Why does this matter? I like the fact that part of my job is protection. I protect those things that we can't do anything with nowadays because of, you know, different ways of analysis that haven't been invented yet. I think the most frightening situation I've ever been in is when I was in Russia. September 11th happened the first day we were there. And so we had BBC radio and that was it. And what they were telling us on BBC radio, first thing in our morning, 12 hours difference, was that New York, Washington, Chicago, and San Francisco had been bombed and that there was burning, like in all those major cities. It was pretty freaky. Right next door to Ossetia is Chechnya. And so and then right south of you is Georgia, and, you know, eventually you're into Iran, you know, and so Afghanistan's right around there too. So it was a pretty hairy place to be. There's a lot of Muslims. I was actually with the professor who was Jewish and people that were Christians, and there was Muslims. And so the professor that ran the cave, he had, no joke, one of his field guys was carrying a Kalashnikov, you know, an AK-47. They had hand grenades. He was a Navy veteran, and so Sergei. And he was walking around and he was fully armed, just in case. I'd always cut my hair really short and leave my beard alone. Because black beard, dark hair, don't say anything, brown eyes, dressed like they do. As long as I didn't talk, I didn't stick out so far. What sets me apart from this? I don't know, I think it's just being myself. I think that I'm one of the people in the world that is extremely lucky to have found something that they're good at, that they like to do, and that they actually have a knack for.
In your own opinion, what's the most exciting thing about this field of work?
You know, what you're going to find next, because you never know.